friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we will be talking about bad tropes but good books. So I've thought of some of my least favourite tropes that are quite common within fiction, and I'll talk about an example where I actually liked the book. Because more often than not, if you don't like the trope, then you won't like the book, because all you'll be seeing is that trope. So I have 5 tropes here to talk about, and let's just get into it. So the first trope is the chosen one trope. So I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the chosen one trope. I just feel as though it is now it's overly prevalent in fiction. When Harry Potter first came out, it was fine because it was new and fresh, whereas now it is so prevalent in so many books and films that we see it all the time, and it gets a bit boring and repetitive. Like, why is there one person that is chosen and not anyone? Anyone could save the day. Why does it have to be that particular prophesized chosen person?
She's only interested in you because she thinks you're the chosen one.
But I am the chosen one.
So the book that I actually liked with this trope is Malice by John Gwynne. So this book is a multi-perspective series, and you are following a lot of characters, but there is a prophecy which denotes that there will be a bright star and a black sun who will fight it out for good against evil. And so you know very much at the very beginning that there's going to be this bright star who is the chosen one. What I quite liked about this is that in the beginning you don't know who is the chosen one. That there are a couple of contenders who the bright star could be, and it isn't until midway through the book that you actually realise that John Gwynne has sort of flipped the trope on its head, and who you thought could have been the bright star is actually not. So I think he does this trope very well. It continues throughout the whole series that there is this chosen one in it, but there are so many other aspects to the book. There are so many other protagonists that we're following, and overall the other themes and the writing style, the characters, I loved this. So I could completely overlook that it had this trope in it. Next, one that's very common and very disliked is love triangles. My big issue with love triangles is that you can always tell who they're going to end up with. Well, not always, but there's always an obvious winner. Take the selection series. You know from the very beginning pretty much who's going to win, because the other male interest just isn't as interesting as the main one. So you can just tell straight away that it's not really a triangle. It's more just a relationship with a side salad. When it is done well, when it really is the tension between 3 people, then it can work. And I would say it works really well in The City of Brass. So I love this series for the fantasy as well as the romance, and there isn't that much romance in it. The romance is very much a subplot of the book, that the fantasy, the political intrigue, the interactions between so many of the other characters are much more forefront than romance. And I would say the love triangle really works because you're getting the perspectives of all 3 of the characters, so you can see in the heads of the main female and the 2 male interests, and you can see how they all come together and how it works. And I wouldn't say there's any overlap really between relationships, that there's a relationship with one and then things could progress with another. Like, there's no cheating going on. I would say that it works. It's more like a progression of love interest rather than necessarily a triangle. As I said, I don't feel as though the relationship is at the forefront of this book, so that's why I would say it works. The next trope that I am becoming not a fan of is when the main character is an orphan. So I don't know what's happened to all the parents in fantasy books, because they seem to be dead, missing, not around, and I don't quite get, well, I do get why, because there is more like war in fantasy books, but how often in the day-to-day world are people without their parents? It just doesn't seem so realistic. But it seems to be the norm in a fantasy world that our main character is an orphan. So the book I'd like to talk about with this trope is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. So Sansia, our main character, is an orphan and she doesn't know who her parents are. But, you know, I'm fine with it. If the world is good and the rest of the storytelling is done well, then I can get over it. And in some instances, I guess it works with the plot. Like, if Sansia had parents, she wouldn't be in the circumstances that she's in. She wouldn't be a thief. She wouldn't be hunting for money. She wouldn't have ended up where she is now if she had been brought up by her parents. So I can see the necessity of it. And in this book it really works, and I love the fantasy plot that's in this. So this book follows Sansia, who is a thief, and she is tasked with getting an object for one of the noble families in this world. And she succeeds in doing this, but then she is sought out to be killed because she has knowledge of the object that she has stolen. And the people that wanted the object don't want anyone else to know about it. And chaos ensues. But yeah, I can get over the trope. I mean, I can get over the trope with all of these books because that's why I'm recommending them. I just don't like the trope. Another very common trope that everyone really hates, me included, is Insta Love. So I feel as though Insta Love is very common in young YA contemporary books, and a lot of books we have moved away from Insta Love, that so many people, rightly so, don't like it because it's unrealistic. You don't automatically fall in love with someone when you meet them. Potentially there's Insta Lust, but Insta Love is, you're not in love with someone after 24 hours. It just doesn't happen. So one of the books that I would recommend where I feel as though there is an element of Insta Love is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Our main character, Strange, is in love with this town called Weep. He has been brought up hearing about this town called Weep, and he studies it, and it's this mysterious place that no one really knows if it exists or not, but he is seeking out everything he can find about it, their language, the culture, everything about it, until one day he gets to go and visit Weep. So a search party from Weep finds his town where he lives, and they employ him to come back there with him. And when he gets there, he ends up meeting someone, and it does seem as though that they fall in love very quickly. And it is Insta Love. It really is, but the writing style and just the way the whole book panned out, I just didn't really care. And I can completely see why people don't like this trope in this book. But for me, I was like, oh, okay, fair enough, yeah, fine. And I was just in love with the world, in love with the writing, and could overlook that flaw. And then my final bad trope would be when graphic content is used for shock value. And I think it's tricky with this because you could often say that the graphic content is there for a reason, and then you'll have someone else come along and say, oh no, it's just there for shits and giggles. So for me, I think the graphic content in the book The Poppy War is relevant and has its purpose. It is very graphic, but I think it works for this book and what it is trying to portray. So the Poppy War it's based on the Sino-Japanese War. the first half of the book, we're following our main character Rin as she goes to this military school, and then there's very much a tonal shift, and the impact of war really hits the book in the second half, which is based, there is a scene in this book which is based on the rape of Nanking, and for me this scene is very shocking, and it is definitely a trigger warning, and it is very graphic, and it is hard to read, but it's the truth that although this is a fantasy world, it is based on real life events, and it doesn't shy away from the fact that war is brutal. And the scene isn't in there just for shock value. It isn't just to propel you forward in the plot. I mean, the plot does progress from this scene, but I think it is an important aspect of this book because, well, for me, and I think a lot of other readers, they had no idea that these sorts of atrocities existed in this world. I know that both Jessie May and Alan from the Library of Alexandria have done reviews on this, and Alan is planning to do a video on the history of the Poppy War and how that all relates with our actual, the actual history that went into the plotting of this book. So I will link those videos down below. I can see that in some books, if there are these really graphic scenes, that they are triggering, and we should always denote whether a book contains these sorts of scenes, but if they're done right and if they're done respectfully, then I think they work. So those are 5 tropes that I do not like, but 5 books that I absolutely love. So more often than not, these tropes fail and they don't work, but when they do work, I can still give books with these tropes 5 stars. Please let me know if you have any good books for bad tropes, or bad books for good tropes, because it could be the reverse. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in some future videos. Bye!